Hi guys, today we're going to be talking all about discovery calls and sales or strategy calls. I'm really excited to dive into this because for the last few weeks, I've been talking about what's it called and what's it mean as far as business, because there's a lot of terms that are thrown around left and right. And we often don't really know what we should be using, what we shouldn't be using. And so today I want to hone in on the strategy behind having calls in your business. And regardless of what you decide, I feel like it's important for you to understand what a sales call is, what a strategy call is, what a discovery call is, how you want to use it if you decide to, how they're typically structured, and the value that they actually provide and bring. So let's dive in and get started. Discovery calls are fantastic ways for you to introduce what it is that you have to offer and for you to create a connection between you and a potential for an ideal client. And I love it because it's really personal when you're talking on video or you're recording a podcast or you're doing a YouTube video or even a live. There's still a personal feel, but it's not as intimate as a one-on-one call where you really get to connect, see what a person is struggling with, learn a little bit more about them, and they get to learn a little bit more about you. And so that's what I love about discovery calls, because I think that they're really, really powerful. Now, before you decide whether or not you want to use them or how you want to use them, it's important that you get crystal clear about what those discovery calls will be for, so what the purpose is, and how you're going to show up or utilize them. So for me and my business, I don't do discovery calls as much as I used to in the beginning stages, but I do have one a day a month where I open up my calendar and I allow people to schedule 15-minute discovery calls. And during these calls, it's an opportunity for people to kind of share where they're stuck. And then I talk about how I can support them moving forward. So I really, really love the way that I have used discovery calls because there's a lot to be learned from them, but everyone uses them a little differently. And some people, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Some people will have a 30-minute discovery call, a 45-minute discovery call, an hour-long discovery call. It really is about your business model and what aligns for you. When I first started my business, my strategy calls were about 45 minutes. And then I've slowly kind of like broken them down so that I can create room to call in more people. So a big question that I get is like, what is the difference between a discovery call and a strategy call? And I'm going to share my personal belief about this. A discovery call is for you to lock arms, connect with someone who could be a potential client, and for them to share what it is that they're struggling with and to discover if you two together are a good match. Whereas for me, a strategy call is more intentional and focused on strategy. So this is where you would show up, you give a little bit of coaching, and if people like what it is that you're coaching about, they may decide that they want to take it a step further. They want to go a little bit deeper and potentially work with you. And so that's what I love about it, is because you could potentially have both of them. When I do strategy calls, it's a little bit more intimate. So it's about 30 to 45 minutes. I call it coffee chats. So we'll hop on a Zoom, a phone call, drink coffee. I don't drink coffee, so I might be drinking like hot cocoa or even water or whatever. And we just chat, we just chit chat. And I may agree, okay, I'm going to give you one strategy around what it's like to write your book, or one strategy around how you can show up more intentionally online. Versus the discovery call is very much like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Is there a way that you can support me? But I'm very clear in my messaging that I'm either going to do a strategy call or a discovery call. And I really make sure that I showcase the difference between them. So some other terms that you may hear is a clarity call, a connection call, a sales call. Trying to think of any more terms come up, but essentially those are the terms that come up around what a discovery call is. Or a strategy call. And you can use the terms interchangeably, but again, what you want to do is you want to highlight what that call is going to look like. And no matter what kind of call it is, you remember that ultimately you are the expert. So you get to show up and you essentially get to lead, but still open up space for them to talk. I've been on strategy calls and discovery calls where the coach will get on and they'll say, hi. And then I'll say, hey, how are you? And I'm leading the conversation at that point. I was calling because of this, this, and this. I've had people hop on and not even know, where to begin or to lead the conversation. And that's really overwhelming for me as a client who is a potential client who's leading or leaning into you for some level of direction. So make sure that you remember that you're the expert and people are trusting you enough with their time, their valuable time, to jump on these calls and to get insight from you. So the way that a discovery call or a strategy call would typically work is you essentially want to build rapport right away, which is really important. The last thing you want to do is jump on the call and be like, hey, do you want to buy my program? Like, you don't want to go straight to that. You want to say, hey, how are you? I like to talk about things. If I'm on a Zoom, I'll intentionally talk about things in the background, and I'll say like, oh, I really love your painting, or I really love your shirt, or oh my gosh, your earrings are lovely. If I'm on a phone call, I'll say, okay, where are you located? What's the weather like out there? Just very simple conversation to just kind of break the ice, let them get to know you. And I always have really, really good rapport building opportunities. And I love that. Recently, I did a discovery call with a woman whose kids were in the background, kind of rambunctious. And as a single mom, I'm like, I know that feeling of like all the chaos, but you're still trying to focus. And so I asked her questions. How old are your kids? What are their names? A boy and a girl? You know, what grade are they in? What are they into? I built that rapport because that's important for people to know that you want to connect beyond finances or that sale. The next thing you want to do is you want to open up space. Oh, during the rapport, I also like to ask, like, where did you find me at? You know, like what made you, how did you find me? I just always like to do that. That helps me to know where I'm showing up and what about it is working. Then I move into them really laying out why they wanted to do the call to begin with. So I have them open up space and maybe like, oh, so tell me a little bit about your book writing process. And then they'll share a little bit about their book writing process. And I'll say, okay, what have you tried? Or where are you stuck? And I'm essentially allowing them to open up and share what it is that they're learning on the journey, what it is, where they feel stuck, where they feel stagnant, and what kind of support they're looking for. At this point, if it is a strategy call, I will share a strategy, an immediate strategy that they can begin to use, because I love being able to give instant wins. If it's a discovery call, I always say, thank you so much for trusting me enough to share that. There's a couple different ways that I connect and work with people. And then I'll share, you know, I have this one-on-one option. I have this program. I have this. What, based on the support you're looking for, I think that this program could be a great fit because of this, 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 and this. How does that feel for you? Now, I will say that I won't move into step number 3, where I'm talking about how I could support them unless I actually feel like I can support them. Recently, I had a lady who jumped on a call with me and wanted to know about editing. I'm not an editor, so I sent her to my editor from that call. I didn't just try to sell her into a program just to make a sale. I really listened to what it was she needed, and I made sure to pay attention to how I could show up and support her if I could. That's really, really important, okay? Because you want to make sure that you're calling in clients you can connect with and soulmate clients. And then finally, after I'm explaining the different offers I have and what I think would be a great next step, I discuss what happens next. If they want to move forward, then I'll say, okay, after this call, I will send you over the link where you can submit your payment, or I've even taken payments on the phone if people are comfortable with that. If it's something like they need to speak to a spouse, I always love to ask, what question would your spouse have that I can answer for you today? Just making sure that we're really answering all the questions on the phone. And then I set the intention, okay, I will follow up with you on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Does that sound fitting for your schedule? Making sure that I am setting that next step and making sure that we're both agreeing on that next step, and making sure that we're on the same page, which is extremely important. One of the things that I like to do when I'm on these discovery calls is I also like to record my discovery calls and listen to them. If you ever hear, if you ever call like, I don't know, some business, and they'll say, this call is being recorded for quality assurance purposes. I used to work at a call center, so I know that script very well. But the reason that they record calls for quality assurance is because they go back and as trainers and they listen to it and they say, okay, what could we fix? What could we do different? What's going well? And that's the same thing you want to do in your business. You may find that maybe you didn't really do as well with that connection piece, that rapport piece early on, or maybe they said something, but you didn't listen well enough and there was a better suited option for them. But again, the more you're reflecting on it, the more you're taking this in, the more you're going to learn what is an effective way for you to show up on these calls. In addition, it really helps you with market research, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, when I talk about the value of discovery calls and why these discovery calls are so important. So ultimately, you want to structure these discovery calls in a way that feels aligned for you, but you still kind of want to use somewhat of that framework. And no matter what kind of framework you use, make sure that you are, one, building that rapport, that is so important, okay? And then two, offering the next step. I see a lot of people, when I listen to my clients' recorded discovery calls, a lot of them will be scared to ask for the sale. But like, remember, people are jumping on these calls because they're wanting help. And so it serves no one for you to play small. It serves no one for you to talk yourself out of it. It serves no one for you to try to convince yourself that you shouldn't sell, or that selling is sleazy or something like that. So don't forget to always ask for the sale as well, as long as it's aligned. So the three biggest benefits of doing discovery calls or strategy calls, or I will call them connection calls, is first and foremost, you're really connecting with your audience. I want you to think about the first time you wanted to set a goal, a vision for yourself. So maybe it was losing weight, maybe it was writing a book, maybe it was starting a business, maybe it was healing after a breakup. A lot of times when you're moving towards something new, it can feel very, very, very scary. I remember for me, when I started my business and I was trying to tell all my friends and my family about this business ideas I had, a lot of them were like, I mean, I guess. I remember a friend specifically saying like, girl, you went to school for all these years and you're just gonna throw it all away for a business? Like, and I remember just thinking like, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm tripping, or maybe I am wrong. And then telling another friend later who told me that I was selfish basically for wanting to do this, because here I am raising 2 kids and working a full-time job. How could you have time to show up on a business? You need to give this time to your kids. And so every time I tried to move towards what it was I wanted, all of those conversations began to surface. And I started to think about like, maybe I am selfish. Maybe I am doing something wrong. Maybe I'm approaching it wrong. And it felt very overwhelming for me to move forward. So in these connection calls, you get to support people with their vision, with their thoughts and their ideas. A lot of people who feel very isolated, or a lot of people who feel very alone, or a lot of people who don't really even understand how to conceptualize their vision. And you're essentially holding space for them to open up and be vulnerable and share what's on their mind, which is a really, really powerful place to be, because it helps them to feel connected. The second thing is that you get to do market research. So while you're blessing them with this connection piece, you can do market research. And this is why I really, really love to record calls as well. But as you're on these discovery calls, even if you don't want to record, take notes. I mean, diligently take notes. So listen to what are key phrases that they're bringing up, problems that they're having, experiences that they're going through, maybe even things that they've tried that have or haven't worked. This is all informing the way that you show up. So let's say, for example, you have someone on there who's saying like, okay, I took this course on writing a book, but it was all these like blogs, and it just was so much writing, and I couldn't understand, and I wish that it was like more live. I wish it was more interactive. Now okay, I have a course. How can I be intentional about making my course interactive? When I was making my course, Happily Divorced course, my entire name, Happily Divorced course, came from me doing market research. Me jumping on the call with people who were saying, I just want to feel happy again. Like, I don't even feel like myself. I feel like I lost myself. I used to be so happy and bubbly. What happened? That name, Happily Divorced course, came from people using that word again and again. And this is why taking notes and recording the calls helps you to determine what it is that you need to focus on. When I was building out the Elevate Method certification program, one of the things that I learned as I talked to people who were building out coaching businesses is that they didn't feel confident. They didn't feel like they really had the skills. They jumped on calls and people will present with problems and they would have no idea how they could support them. And this is why I created a technological reference guide. So this is basically the different techniques that I teach. And I created a reference guide so that when someone comes to you and they're in a lot of pain, or someone comes to you with anxiety, or someone comes to you with a limiting belief or self-sabotage, you essentially know, one, to tune in to what feels good for you, but here are some other ideas that you can supplement in your session to really support them. Because I wanted my coaches to essentially be able to build that confidence to show up as a coach that they were called to be. This, again, came from market research. So this is one of the most valuable pieces of doing discovery calls, and why I highly recommend actually doing discovery calls when you're in the early stages of business, because it's helping you to build that foundation to make sure that what it is you're launching, what it is that you're offering, what it is you're showing up as actually resonates and relates to your ideal tribe, okay? And then finally, the third thing is that you get an opportunity to become visible. So research says that it takes about 7 times, this is an old marketing concept, but it takes about 7 times for a prospect to see from you, hear from you, or learn more about you before they're ready to buy. Now, that doesn't mean that 7 times is the only number. There's some people that will buy in 1, and there's some people that'll buy in 13, but 7 times is the average. A discovery call is a great way to supplement other ways that you're showing up. So let's say, for example, someone signs up for a free training of yours, and let's say they miss it, right? But they still know about this training. So that's one. Then they see you posting on social media. Now they're on your email and they're seeing different things. One day they're bored, they run over to your YouTube channel, they see your YouTube channel, and then they get an offer to jump on a free call with you and they get to brainstorm with you. Now that's 5 different ways that you've interacted with them. And at that point, they may be ready to say yes to that next step. They may be ready to open up because, again, that visibility is powerful. But discovery calls typically have a higher conversion rate because it's very intimate and it's very personalized. So when you're jumping on these discovery calls, a person may say, I'm really struggling with how to build out my business. And you can talk about specifically the way in which your program can support them at building out their business, not just what's on a sales page that kind of speaks to everyone, but specifically unique to their business structure, their model, and where they're at in the process. So that's one of the really good benefits of discovery calls. It's a great way for you to really get visible and for people to see that there's an opportunity to take that next step and why that can be of importance and value to them. So discovery calls, I say all that to say that they're absolutely amazing. Now, I recognize that some people really love them and use them as a pivotal part of their business structure and model, and some people don't use them at all. Or some people are like me, who start off using them really heavily and then start to kind of wean off as they feel confident in the market research, as they feel confident in the things that they're sharing and showing up with, or as their schedule gets busier and busier. But what I'd love for you to do is I'd love for you to take some time to really contemplate what feels good for you as you think of your business structure, as you think of your business model, as you think of where you're at in business and the way in which you want to scale and grow your business, but also keep it sustainable. Do you feel like discovery or strategy calls could be a good addition to your business model? And if so, how could you begin to implement them? So that's what I have for you today. I hope that this was insightful. I trust that it was. And I hope that you all have an absolutely amazing day. Talk